home. And so you get sort of a view of my office, but I'm still here, and you're here, and I'm just so thrilled. So today I have an amazing, amazing show because I have an incredible guest. Before I go there, if you're new to the show, let me just tell you who I am and what the show is about. This year, the tagline for the show is Life on the Loose. And what I mean by that is living your life based on your beliefs and your life and your dreams and your desires, and letting go of the way that we all get sucked into who we're supposed to be. My guest today is absolutely perfect, actually, for this whole conversation. I'll get to her in just a second. Couple things, as you know, if you've been listening to me for a while, I encourage everyone to be a philanthropist in their life. You can do this in a million ways. You can donate $1 a week to somebody, give it away, and that's philanthropy. This year, as in past years, I am supporting the MS Society because of all my friends and family and other people in my life who are dealing and trying to thrive with this disease. The MS Society is focused on finding the cure. And so if you don't have a charity to donate to, I will be putting the link to my fundraiser on the Facebook site, and you can absolutely chip in $1. If everybody listening gave $1 to my fundraiser, you have no idea how many thousands of dollars would go in and how close we are to finding a cure for MS. So that's my commercial. And if you see me looking away, I'm looking at my laptop because this is a great show for which you can chat. I also want to remind you that my book is available. Oh, and if you donate over $50, I will send you a free Kindle link to my novel, Dark Fire. And I know I've held it up before, you've seen it, but it's Dark Fire. It's available on Amazon. And I think that's probably enough of a commercial. I will let you know that this show is entertainment, so I'm not claiming, while I do have a PhD in psychology, I'm not claiming to be your doctor or your psychologist or anything like that. And we're also spiritually multilingual. So if we say a word that kind of doesn't jive, just translate it into something that works for you. Look for the truth in something and don't get like messed up by the verbiage we're using. Okay, enough commercials, because I can't wait to talk to my guest. So, here's what I want to tell you. As you know, I bring women on my show, mostly women, some guys, who have inspired me. This woman wrote a book that I'm not sure, but may not, here we go. And I'm going to say frack, but Tired is Frack. It's her second book. Her first book was the Bracket Diet, but yeah. Okay, she'll tell us in a second. She's inspired me with this writing, and I'm just going to bring her on the show, and we're just going to start talking. Caroline Dooner? Did I do it wrong?
Dooner, yeah.
Dooner. Caroline Dooner, yes. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I have so many questions I want to, but I want to start with, your book talks about a journey from being on this like treadmill, you know, like I have to be thin, I have to audition, I have to do things that scare me, I have to build a life, I have to, which was making you sick. And at some point, you had the courage to step off. And I just want to hear about it. It's okay.
So sorry. Molly, be quiet, please. Sorry.
My dog is downstairs with cookies to hopefully not do that, so I completely understand. But talk to me about your journey from I have to be this way to I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, the big irony is that so much of my anxiety and so much of this very, very militant and obsessive struggle that I was on, that, you know, everything that I was doing, everything I was trying to do, every diet that I wanted, every self-help book that I read and was trying to apply, it was all, my goal was to heal. Like, I was trying to be my healthiest self. I was trying to be my most perfect and healed and spiritual self. And ironically, the way I was going about it was so fear-based and obsessive and stressed out and, you know, self-doubting and kind of self-flagellating that it was the worst thing that I could have possibly done for my physical health, for my mental health, and for my spiritual health. So it really backfired. And so the book is very much, you know, there's a lot of shared lessons and things that we all tend to do culturally and think is healthy and important culturally, and why those things may not be true. But it's very, very memoir based, because I wanted to be able to tell, hopefully, an entertaining story of a girl who was really, really trying, but really approaching everything in a really miserable way, and how it eventually came to a head. And I first, luckily, I went on this radical journey to heal my relationship with food. That was the first thing. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years later, I realized that I was applying a very similar mentality that I'd applied to food to everything else. So that was when I went on my other radical journey, my 2 years of rest. And so the book kind of goes through the deep, deep, obsessive, miserable days and all of the things that led to the exhaustion, and then how I got out of it.
Mm-hmm. So what I loved a whole bunch of stuff about the book, but even the first steps in, I found myself thinking, yeah, my epitaph was going to be, she always wanted to lose 5 pounds. When do we stop that self-destructive cycle of be your best self? And your best self has to look a certain way, and eat a certain way, and act a certain way, and dress a certain way, and have a certain financial status, and fit into your culture, and fit into your tribe, and fit into your family. This took a lot of courage, and a lot of courage to talk about rest. So can you, just for a minute, talk about, we'll go back to more of the book, but what does rest will mean to you? Because people might think you were sleeping for 2 years, but you
That's what everyone thinks. They're like, oh, nice that you went on 2 years of rest. Like, I have to work. And it's like, well, I understand. I had to work too. I was not just lying in my bed for well, I called it my 2 years of rest because I thought it sounded funny and melodramatic and absurd, but it was also something that I was genuinely trying to do. And I had this really clear sense that whatever I did and whatever kind of like healing period I gave myself had to be very significant, which is why it was more than 1 year. I was like, I need 2 years to just overhaul the way that I approach my life. And to me, what I realized is that the way I was going about everything, it was the energy that I was approaching everything with. I was very, very black and white. I was very all or nothing. And the interesting thing for me is that what I realized eventually is that a lot of what I finally realized was burnout. Like I hit a wall. Mm-hmm. Because I had been feeling guilty for any time that I took off, any little time, any night, any weekend, any even week, or any time I would say, you know what, I'm tired, I need to take some rest. Then I felt guilty about it while I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And it was all subconscious. I didn't realize that this is the dynamic that I was operating under, but I really, really, when I finally took stock and realized that since I was in middle school, I had been beating myself up. Of course I'm exhausted. Like, of course it came to a head, you know. So what those 2 years was actually about, yes, I was trying to do yes, I was trying to have boundaries and say no to more things and sort of face my fears of doing less. Like, where is this all coming from? Where is this fear? Where is this guilt coming from? What kind of messages did I soak up and kind of what are the subconscious beliefs I have about productivity and laziness and all of this that are running the show, that are running, you know, the way I feel about myself, that's activating my nervous system from my subconscious, and I haven't even been aware of it my entire life. So I was really trying to do less, but then what I really was doing was dealing with the resistance and the anxiety and the guilt that came up every time I did, because that's where the real work was for me. If you let yourself do less, if you're tired and you let yourself do less, but then you beat yourself up for it, that's not rest. Like, that's just perpetuating that whole cycle. So much of what I was trying to do is really change my whole mindset around, you know, what is a good life? Like, what are we really trying to do? Because I think a lot of us think, oh, well, it's all worth it. You know, it's all going to be worth it because one day we're going to be happy. One day we're going to be able to rest. But that doesn't usually happen unless we very deliberately realize that the way we go about things is the way that it's going to be in another year, another 5 years, another 10 years. So if I wanted to experience more peace, I had to really figure out why I wasn't letting myself right now.
That's really profound, right? Because we've grown up in a culture of busyness and almost cult-like, right? Without insulting any great writers out there, right? Being better all the time, trying to be the best all the time, is exhausting and impossible because it's a target that keeps moving, right?
Right.
And so, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, it's this, I think almost everyone, if not everyone, relates to this because it's extremely human. What we usually think, okay, here's my goal. Once I get there, I'm going to feel different. I'm going to be different. People are going to treat me differently. I'm going to treat myself differently. Everything's going to be charmed finally when I get there. When I get that house, when I get that job, when I reach that weight, when I get that plastic surgery, whatever it is, we're like, finally at this point in my life, when I get married, whatever it is, I'm going to be happy. And then we get there and we're like, okay, well, maybe the next thing, you know,
right.
Then I'll be happy. And we really think, okay, well, you know, great, but you know, I didn't get it. I was wrong. There's one more thing. We do that over and over and over again, and without really, really deliberately examining it, we would do it for our entire lives. And even people like you and I, like I know better, I still do it. I still catch myself doing it all the time. So it's very human, but it's one of the biggest misery-making dynamics, I think, that we do to ourselves as humans.
So in your book, because it reminds me of some aspects of a book on toxic positivity, same thing, where you see Olympic athletes, right? They got the gold, but they got to get the gold again. Or they got the silver and they beat themselves up because they didn't get the gold. Or, you know, they're doing their sport to the point that they now have debilitating arthritis because we can't, and somehow we think it's wonderful. I mean, on some level it is, right, that they're so passionate. But at what point do we have permission to say, accomplish something great, I think I'll go do something else?
Well, because people really, you know, and I can identify with this as someone who's always on track to be a professional musical theater actor. That's what I went to college for. That's what I was in New York trying to do. And I got all this praise, and you would think that getting all of that praise would make you feel really confident. But it actually, for me and for many people, it made me kind of look at myself from the outside in, and I felt like I constantly had to live up to this expectation that I felt others were putting on me, that I was putting on myself, to be perfect, to be impressive, to be as amazing as I believed that I had to be. And I never was. I never lived up to it. So it was this constant dynamic of being completely cruel to myself, and I was never good enough. And you would think the same thing for athletes, like, well, you know, can't you be happy at what you've achieved? But that's not the way that we're set up. That's not the way, first of all, that our brains are set up, but also that our culture at all, you know, we're kind of in this like, okay, well now if I want gold, like I have to stay on top. I can't fall from grace, you know? So we think when we reach this whatever the success is, whatever the goal is, that we're then going to be like, great, now I can relax. But usually it's, oh my God, how do I cling to this? Like, how do I not become the person who used to be a great athlete but now is nobody, you know? So there's a lot of identity wrapped up in it. Like, what identity are we clinging to? Are we kind of almost using as a mask to tell ourselves, okay, I'm good, I deserve a little bit of love, but I have to keep working. You know, that's kind of what we do. We're not taught that we are inherently good and inherently lovable, and that we don't have to constantly be impressing people or keeping, you know, up appearances in order to be worthy of happiness, relaxation, rest. You know, that's what so much of this is tied up in. So many people think, well, I don't deserve to rest, and I can't, and I can't afford it, right? I can't even afford to take, you know, a night off or a week off or what, you know, there's so much wrapped up in that, but also this kind of belief that we haven't worked hard enough yet. Maybe one day I'll deserve it. And then, but then what happens to us? We're miserable and we burn out often.
Right. Americans leave, I don't even know what the number is, but I know I did this, hours and hours of vacation time on the table. And you lose it, right? I remember when I did step away from my career, looking back and really realizing how little I used my vacation time. I would take a 3-day weekend. And then even on vacation, I would be doing my email.
Right.
Right?
Right. And that's very interesting. I mean, think about how much that has become a part of our lives now that we can't get away. I mean, we technically can. We could technically turn off everything, but because of these advancements in technology, we are constantly accessible. And we've gotten to a place where we don't realize that it didn't used to be this way and that it's not healthy. I mean, it's really, really not healthy for our brains to constantly be like, well, I mean, they know that I have my phone with me and I'm going to see this email. And like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. There's this great book, Tiffany Schlein, 24/6, and she talks about turning off all the technology 1 day a week, right? Like a Sabbath.
I really need to do that.
It's a really good book. She's really cool.
Okay.
And I've been trying to do that for like having 1 day a week where I'll answer my phone. I will talk on the phone, but I don't need to check social. There's nothing good on social media anyway. I don't need to check it. Nobody cares if I'm there. It's right. It's fine. Speaking of social media, I have to tell you a couple. Well, first off, I want to read you something from your website that I love. Okay. Because now, what you've been doing, I realize this isn't about your book, but I love this, on Instagram, you're just like posting wild stuff.
Going rogue. I'm going rogue.
You're going rogue.
What's happening on Instagram.
And so this is what is on your website. It says that your work, basically, confessions of a politically homeless ex-woke, anti-establishment, anti-diet, cancel culture critical, professional rester, kind of self-help, kind of anti-self-help, kind of funny, kind of spiritual, kind of conspiracies. This is like, release, just don't get trapped by anything. It's all a cult, right?
Yes, yes. And that is a lot of what Tired AF, whatever you want to call it, a lot of what it's about. Like, can we look at the way cult mentality works and be very, very aware that, again, it is very human to want to be right, to want to have figured it out. I'm good. I'm on the right path. They're stupid. They haven't figured out what I figured out. And I mean, let's talk about over the past 2 years, I've just seen that divide get even more extreme, and people are just so stuck in their, you know, their extreme sides and their camps. And it has, I mean, and you see it play out on social media. You see it play out with like, oh, well, you said the wrong word and you said this bad thing and you don't think exactly like me, or you must be like them and you must be a really bad person and we need to, it's just gotten so, it's gotten terrifying. It really has gotten terrifying. And it really is kind of, you know, these, a lot of people are very, again, even just the term cancel culture is so polarizing. So sometimes I don't even want to use it because it, you know, puts people on guard, like, oh my gosh, well, are you on the alt-right because you're using the term cancel culture? And it's like, oh my God, I just want to be able to talk, but just talk without fear of being like jumped on, you know?
Yes.
And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And Instagram was like, I mean, even it just, you know, people can report you and then Instagram like will flag you and flag your account and you're not allowed to do certain, and I was like, I need to be putting some energy into a different platform. It's not gonna like delete my account if I say something they don't like. And it really makes this, and I was terrified to do this, which is really interesting. Even last year at this time, I was like, I was terrified to piss people off. And I knew that was wrong. I knew there was something wrong happening. I knew that I couldn't be a writer. I couldn't continue to be a writer if I wasn't willing to risk pissing people off, or, you know, be willing to actually say what I thought. And for people to give you the grace that, like, look, I'm not saying I have everything figured out. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right about this, but can I just talk about what I want to talk about without, like, risking my entire career? So it became this thing where I really had to be comfortable stepping out of the cult, so to speak, that I felt like I was in. That, you know, most of my followers had a very, very, very narrow worldview that I had shared, actually, until I had some experiences where I thought, hey, this doesn't really make as much sense anymore. You know, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than this, and I think we should be able to ask questions and share things that make you uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you're against someone just because you have a different way of looking at something. So I had to really get comfortable with making people angry, not intentionally, that's never what I want to do, but to say, you know what, I am not comfortable way on this side anymore. I'm more comfortable somewhere in the middle where we can have nuanced conversations. And so I wrote that thing that you read because I want people to, like, not follow me if they're not cool with that. Like, if that's going to piss them off, like, then let's just start off not starting off. You know what I mean? Because unfortunately before somehow when people found out that I didn't think exactly like them in every single aspect of our lives, they were like, you're bad. You know, you're not the person that I thought you were, and, you know, I'm going to return your book, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I'm sorry.
Okay, but you know what's amazing though is you're a humorist, and comedians are really suffering under this. I look back and think you could never have the show All in the Family now. It insulted everybody. I mean, you know, it just exposed stuff, and you'd never be able to have any of that now.
I know, which is sad. I mean, it's not good. I mean, if you look at, like, from a cultural standpoint, we need comedy, and we need comedians to feel free to make mistakes. I mean, you don't have to like what they say, you don't have to follow them, you don't have to give them money, but they should be free to speak, you know, and make jokes that people don't like. Yeah, that was a big thing where, like, people were taking everything I said so seriously, and then if they were offended by it, and really, like, I don't want to offend people. Like, people on the internet are like, no, you're just like a chaos agent. You're just trying to. You think that because, I don't know, and not enough people are doing it or something. I don't know, but I'm genuinely just trying to, like, have a good time and, like, make little jokes that, I mean, even like I'm trying to think. I made, there was one, like, here's one example. I genuinely didn't know what Squid Games was. Like, I genuinely didn't know that it was a television show. I thought it was a TikTok challenge. I don't know why. I'm getting old. I didn't know what the newest pop culture thing was. And I made a post that was like, I do not know what Squid Games is, and I don't think I'm gonna ever find out. And people were like, oh, that is a Korean TV show. Like, how dismissive of another culture's art. And I was like, is it, if I just didn't even know? Like, I literally thought it was a tick. And so it, like, devolved into this thing of, like, well, now that you know, you should do better. And it's like, and it's all of this stuff, like, people are, like, parroting, like, well, this is what you say to, like, you know, to be an activism in the comments. And I was like, oh my god, like, this is when I can see it happening over the most absurd things, but people really get upset about it. I'm like, oh, we're really far gone right now. And people have been stuck at home, and they're, like, agitated, and they just, you know, we're not in a very psychologically or spiritually good space right now.
I absolutely agree with that. And we have lots of reasons, right? I mean, it's been a hard few years, but
yeah, I mean, it really has been.
But I think what your writing does is the all in the family energy of now. Like, look, let's expose how silly we are as humans. Let's just expose our weirdness, and right, and if we do that, then maybe some of this craziness we'll start to realize, just like we did, you know, back with All in the Family. It's just craziness.
Right.
It's not real. But it sounds like people were treating you like you were the gurus, the cult leaders.
Well, that's the problem, right? And that's the irony, because even in the first book about, anti-diet,
Mm-hmm.
the Effort Diet, I talk a lot about how because we've become a less religious kind of culture,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us have, without knowing it, replaced that kind of structure and goodness and morality with diets. And with lots of other things too, but one of those things is diets. And then in the second book, I kind of talk about how we can turn lots of different things into these extreme religions or cults, or cult mentality really is seeping into so many different areas of our lives, and things are getting so black and white and so binary. But I really, I try to be so anti-dogma, and you can do whatever you want to do, and you can really, please be in charge of your own life. Do not do things just because I tell you to do them.
Mm-hmm.
But then this ironic thing happens where somehow then, even by saying that, I become the guru accidentally, because that's what we do as humans. I did it with diets. It wasn't a formal cult, but I kind of made it this whoever wrote this book, they know everything that I should do, and I wish they would tell me what I needed to do next, So then when I disappointed people by not saying what they expected me to say or what they wanted me to say, it was like, well, she is bad and she's harming people, and she's problematic. So it's just, we're struggling.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And hopefully we will find our way, But the good news is that a lot of people who follow me have actually gone on a similar path to me over time. They've reached out and said, I was like you, or I was kind of really extreme on this one side, and even just these past 2 years, seeing how little I'm allowed to say now, it's kind of made me question it and come back to a more nuanced way of looking at things, which gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of hope to hear from people saying, you know what? I don't agree with this either. I think we should be allowed to have conversations and not always agree,
I absolutely agree with that. Do you have, I know I said half an hour time, do you have a little bit more time? Because I'm so enjoying you.
Yes, I have a little bit more time, just a little bit, because I have someone come to repair my dryer vents that is leaking humid air.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I also love the Instagram stuff about the garden and the mold, and that, yes, I'm living a normal life, and we never talk about these things. I forgot to put the washing in the dryer, and now it smells bad, and and so, and meanwhile, I'm supposed to be running a business.
Others, they're just like you, or even more of a mess than you.
Even more. Okay, so, honestly, talking to you is just so really wonderful. What I'm thinking about as you talk is that, and I started with my tagline is life on purpose, right? Which is exactly what I'm talking about with you. Is what you've written about is that there are so many ways we get sucked into these cult ways of thinking, and I've done it. Like I said, I always want to lose 5 pounds, and how do I read this next leadership book, and how do I transform my leadership, and here's this consulting, and what am I going to do, and then over and over and over again. Here's what I want to know. I want to know, we talked about rest, but how have you learned to balance the rest and the being inspired to do, right? Because you have both of those. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So what's interesting, and what I found, a little bit of this is allowing the pendulum to swing. I found that with my relationship with food, after years of being so controlled, I really had to let myself kind of go to the other side and really allow my body to just get what it was asking for. And that's something that we're taught not to do in our society. And you're just gonna eat your entire kitchen until you can't move anymore. And I really did not find that to be true. And there's a lot of science to support why, but it got to a point where my body naturally came back to the middle. And that was something that also happened with rest. So I was that tired that I had to kind of be a little bit more extreme with my rest for a time until I got back. And it was physical, and I think it was kind of spiritual too. I had to kind of go through, this rest and allowing myself to, you know, kind of disappoint people, and also physically rest until I got to a place a couple of years later where I was like, I feel a little bit better, and I actually would like to do some more things now. I think I will always be someone who really loves a lot of free time, and that's something that I'm lucky right now, in the very least, to have a life and a career where I can kind of do that and have plenty of time to create, right? But I think a lot of it is the way that we talk to ourselves. I think a lot of it is, you know, recognizing that having goals and being productive and having projects is actually really life affirming and really good for us and really good for our souls, and can just feel good just for the sake of having that project. I think it becomes a question of, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Are we doing it because we enjoy it? Are we doing it because it feels good? Are we doing it because it makes us enjoy our lives and makes our lives genuinely better? Or are we doing it because we are stressed and we're being really hard on ourselves and we don't know how to relax and we don't know how to lie down and we don't know how to take, you know, time off, and we are really hard on ourselves. And so that's the first thing. And I also think that, you know, once we get into a place of being able to kind of, when we're more in tune with our bodies, and I think that happens after allowing rest and, you know, getting into a better relationship with food where you can listen to your hunger and listen to your exhaustion, then you can get to a place where you can have your projects and you can have your life and you can have, you know, a normal life where you do things like a normal person, but you're in tune enough with your energy, both physically and mentally and emotionally, where your body's going to speak up, and you're going to, when you start to get tired or when you start to get tapped out, you're going to know, hey, I'm pushing myself too hard. It's time to stop for the day, or it's time to go for a walk, or it's time to take a little nap, or it's time to eat some food. There's a more of, you're more in touch with yourself, and you're not, and there's nothing wrong with having a schedule or like a, you know, having things regimented, as long as you're also able to check in with your body and say, hey, right now I'm supposed to be still working. Is that going to work for me, or do I need to have a snack, or do I need to go for a walk, or do I need to take a little breather so my brain can, you know, come back online? There's nothing wrong with these things that I'm criticizing in the book, like, but it's the hyper productivity that I'm criticizing, and the kind of like anxiety that we have around it, and these unexamined beliefs about what it means if you soften that, you know?
That's lovely. That's lovely. So I know you have to, you know, I know you have, you know, dryer issues and light issues and, you know, garden issues and dog issues and all of that stuff. But I want to thank you so much for being on the show and to affirm to you that I love the book.
Thank you.
And I don't see you as a cult figure. I see you as somebody who is affirming to us that we get to make choices within our life. And sometimes we're going to work really, really hard because that's what we have to do. And sometimes we should choose not to, because, right? And that if you didn't, you know, my friends always joke, like, you know, you don't actually have to go out and walk 4 miles and ride the bike 13 and then lift weights all in one day. Bill, you don't have to do that every day. You can have a day where you don't exercise at all. I think what you're just affirming is listen to what you need, right, in that, and see what works for you.
Yeah, and just the last thing is, we are not taught that we can or should. We're not taught that that's a safe thing to do, and I totally disagree. And I think we can be really out of whack if we haven't been resting or sleeping. It's gonna feel like, oh my God, I can't get enough food, I can't get enough rest. But it's because we're in this extreme state in the first place. So you really, if people take away anything from this, you really can trust yourself. It just may take a little time to prove that to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is so fun. Thank you.
So fun. Okay. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. All right. So if you've been listening, watching, here we go. This is the Dr. Alicia Show on KUHS Denver stream. If you're watching on Facebook, you'll notice that I am at home. I'm updating my Facebook right now. Full disclosure, I got exposed to COVID. I want to keep everybody around me safe, but I want to be on the radio with you. And so I am at home and just making sure that that everybody in the studio is safe. And luckily, my guest was on Zoom anyway. So let's go back to a little bit of what my guest was talking about. So if you're just joining me, that was Caroline Dooner. Her book is that backwards? I think so. Tired as Crap, right? There you go. She also has another book about dieting, but this is the one that we just spent some time talking about. Would love to have some of your comments possibly in the Facebook site. You can't text to me because I'm not in the studio, but you can definitely comment on the Facebook site. And I'm just pulling it up to see some of you are there and doing it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great.
So let me do a bit of a recap and then see how you responded to this. You know, my tagline is Life on the Loose, and this is basically what I've been talking about, everything she just said, which is we get so tied up in everything we're supposed to do, that we've been taught we're supposed to do. You know, you have to dress a certain way and act a certain way, and half of your friends are on one diet or the other, and what does that mean if they're on that diet and you're not, and how do I, you know, fit in, and what if I'm not running a half marathon, or what if I'm not joining this special group? And if you're in social media, I think that you are bombarded on a regular basis with this, that here's how to vote, here's how to think, here's how to dress, here's how to make 6 figures, I did it, you should do it, here's how to write a book that's going to be a bestseller, on and on and on. And the pressure to be extraordinary in this world by doing certain things is overwhelming. As opposed to, you came to this planet, you're here, you're doing your life, and you don't have to earn the right to be happy. You don't have to earn the right to be loved. It's interesting that we in this country have either gone full force to extreme religion or full force to abandoning it, and trying to find, a lot of people are trying to find sort of a spiritual sense in there, that I think what people are searching for is, I am loved. I'm okay the way I am. If I never lose that 5 pounds, if I don't buy the most latest fashion, if I don't know the current actors, actresses, TV shows, movie, it's okay. I actually was at a meeting where somebody was talking, the family, one of the families there was very into board games, and they were talking about a certain game, and I said I didn't know the game, and the mom said, I can't believe it, you've never played that game? Well, the truth is I don't play board games. First off, I live alone, so it's kind of hard to play a board game by yourself, right? You know, Scrabble alone, chess alone, it's not very fun. Monopoly by yourself is really not fun. And it was never my family tradition. We just didn't do it. So I'm just kind of not into it. And I'm really bad at card games. So, you know, I didn't want to learn any more of those. She was shocked and kept going on. I have friends who were really into pickleball. That's sort of the thing. But I'm not. I have people who are shocked. You're so athletic. Don't you play pickleball? No, I don't. It's not what I do. It's not my thing. It's also hard to stop doing something. I used to ski avidly, and I was pretty good. It wasn't great. It was, you know, not amazing, but I was good. And then I just got tired of skiing and started doing other things. And people would say, I can't believe it. I can't believe you live in Colorado and you're not skiing, you know, every single week in the winter. Well, I don't know, doing other things. It's almost like having permission to change is so difficult for us. And that the pressure for us to be who people perceive us to be and crave us to be is so intense that it's hard to sort of birth who we are. Our teenage years are a time when we're supposedly discovering this, and yet in in those years, the pressure from all the teenagers around us is really intense. And I sometimes wonder if the glory of getting older is finally saying, yeah, I don't do that. I don't care about that. I don't do that. Or I do this. I do watch this TV show that nobody seems to like, but I like. Where, it's so funny, my musical tastes are pretty broad. So everything from Beethoven to Sting and Doors and good old 60s rock and roll and to some country western to just keep going. And at one point, somebody said to me, "You like country western? Wow, you're really conservative." I had no idea that those two things naturally went together. That if I like some Blake Shelton songs, well, I also love Jimmy Buffett. So am I uber liberal, right, Jimmy Buffett, or am I conservative Blake Shelton? But people judge us based on things that have no correlation to how they're seen. And it's so difficult to give ourselves permission. That's life on the loose. Life on the loose, for me, quite honestly, is exactly that. It is exactly that ability to say, yeah, here's what I like, and I'm exploring it. And now that I've explored it, don't like it so much. Not what I want to do. And that's okay. But I'm fine with that. And that the world may not be fine with that, and that's okay too. Right? So in her book, I just want to go over a couple things. And again, this was Caroline, I'm going to say it wrong, Dooner, as in like sooner, like Dooner. She talks about how to stop being addicted to busyness. And I do have a guest coming on in a couple weeks who's going to specialize in that. She wrote the book, I Didn't Do the Thing Today. And I'm one of those people who need it. I'm definitely one of those people that if I haven't worked out today, or if I'm vegging out reading a novel instead of prepping for a radio show, or if I haven't written a blog, or if I don't know what's next on the radio show, or who's coming next, if I haven't figured out the next steps in my novel, I somehow feel like I'm not showing up. As opposed to understanding that creativity and flow, spirituality happens in the in-between moments. Music works because there's pauses. Conversation works because there's pauses. Life works in the same way. Right? There's pauses in there. Otherwise, we could live a whole life. If you took out all the pauses in our lives, we could probably live 100 years and die, or something like that. And who wants to do that? And so, getting rid of busyness has taught me how to savor. Here's a great example. So I have a puppy now. She's an 8.5-month-old Yuki puppy. And taking walks with her is great fun. And sometimes she just stops. If you have a puppy, like this. They just stop. And I've learned to stop tugging and to look at her and figure out what she's looking at. And sometimes she's entranced by a bird because she's figuring out that those are things that fly. Or she's very good at scent, and so she's picked up a scent of something. And all of a sudden, I'm not walking to get from A to B. I'm walking, enjoying a journey from A to B with 100 little stops in the middle, and still getting a workout, and still exercising. And I think that that's this amazing quality that we forget about, that creativity comes from those pauses. In her book, she also talks about the artist's way, which is about writing and just journaling without trying to make journaling a thing, right? Like when I journal, first off, I don't use lined paper because it's not going to be even. And second off, I don't go back and correct my grammar or my spelling or anything, because I'm not journaling for someone to read. I might be journaling, I might be stream of consciousness writing, and that's where a lot of my creative source comes from. I think I've mentioned that I wrote my novel, Dark Fire, by going for long walks and letting the characters talk to me, and then coming back and writing with sad. Again, it's in those pauses. Caroline in her book says she's constantly asked the question, is this serving me anymore? Do I even like this thing? Or this thing I do? And she's asking herself this. And when the answer is no, then the next question is, well, what am I going to do about that? Now, trust me, I know. You got to work. You got to make money. This is not, her book is not about quit it all and just go home and do what you want, right? Watch TV all day. Life on the loose isn't about getting rid of everything you own and never taking responsibility. It's not about that at all. It's about saying that I'm going to do it in a way that resonates with me, and I'm going to stop having these voices tell me. I mean, my first really advice: get off social media. Social media is like seducing you in to a more extreme opinion every time you're on it. The algorithms know what you like, and they show you more of that, except a little more to the edge. And soon you find yourself at some weird edge, spouting things and believing things that are disconnected from reality. Get off social media. Listen to the news once a day, maybe don't, or, and then get off. Nothing's really changed. People are just sharing things. If you want the world to change your circle around yourself and how you deal with your circle. Okay? You're never going to create changes by yelling at people on social media. It's like two dogs barking at each other. And actually, it's even worse than that. If my dog barks in the backyard, it echoes. And then she barks at the echo. And so many of us, that's what we're doing on social media. We are barking at our echo. It's not going anywhere. And we've forgotten, lost touch with ourselves. Is this serving you? Is it really serving you? Is there some way that what you're doing and how you're relating to life is freeing you, setting you loose from the things that are exhausting you, the things that you can make choices about? Also in the book, she talks about things that we often don't have control over that are actually incredibly exhausting. Poverty is exhausting. If you haven't tried it, I hope you don't ever have to. But it is exhausting. Having a child who's ill or a partner who's ill is exhausting. There are so many things that are really tiring in our lives and that are stressful to deal with. And then there are things we can make choices about. So, and we're getting close on time. I'm looking at Facebook, and I'm hoping you're just mesmerized by the conversation because you're not saying anything. And she talks in here, and I love this. Happiness isn't a static thing, and we talked about that. We talked about about athletes who reach like a gold medal, and then they like, what next? Where do I go next? What do I do? But when we give ourselves that time, right? Just that time to have a space in our lives, we can reinvent, we can recreate, we can try something new. We can embrace what does make us feel good and happy. And I can guarantee you it's not yelling at other people. That's never going to make you feel good. And I love this too. She talks about, this is an old Jewish joke, that we plan and God laughs. And then she adds, doesn't email you back. I don't get sticky notes. I don't get like guideposts. And yet I do. Those guideposts are deep inside of me. And sometimes they're the serendipity of life, and sometimes it's the synchronicity that talks to me as the world opens up. I said to her that she's courageous because each of you who's listening to me today and is saying, yeah, life on the loose, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to empty my closet of the things that don't work. I shop resale, so I never feel guilty. It comes in from resale, it goes out after resale. But I realized that I bought it and thought it was, and then it's not, or it was, but now it's not anymore, or I used to, and now I don't, and it's okay. It's absolutely okay to be that. When we were kids and somebody used to write in our, your high school yearbook, don't ever change, that's a curse. Really don't ever change. I'm so glad I changed. I'm so glad I've grown and worked and matured and done all of these other things. And there's still more in front of me. So, okay, so how do I want to end this today? That get rid of your boo-boos, okay? Just get rid of your boo-boos. If you are really addicted to a position, listen to the other side. See what they, and don't listen to argue, just listen. What are they saying to you, right? And try not yelling at each other about it. And see what happens. See what happens if you do that. Understand that we all get addicted to the hustle. I have to be a certain way, I have to look a certain way, I have to, whatever. If you're still trying to lose 5 pounds, stop trying to lose 5 pounds. Try to feel good. Try to feel healthy. Right? Focus on that. And if there's something you're craving, that is the small, still voice inside of you saying, I do want this. I still want this. After all sort of clearing the clutter, if there's still a craving, okay, go for that. Don't quit your jobs, but go for that in some way. And understand you may never get rich. I've written 3 books. I don't intend to get rich off of them. I'm hoping you read them and like them. I'm on boards. I don't expect to get awards and go down in history as the best board member ever. But hey, you could donate to my fundraiser and help. There's so many things that we do that ripple out and influence the world around us from our core. Kindness to strangers, kindness to friends, acceptance of other people who have different opinions, and happiness that people have other opinions. Honestly, it'd be terrible if everybody on the planet was just like me. It would be a whirlwind. I don't want that, right? I don't want that. But the only way we can find that place in our lives, that creativity, that ability to grow, that ability to be ourselves, is by resting, is giving ourselves pauses. Okay, so this week, here's your homework, right? Pause. Just pause. Turn off the computer, turn off the TV, read a book, or go outside, go for a walk, talk to your dog, your cat, your horse, talk to your horse. Pull a tarot card, try a crystal ball. Watch a news station you've never watched ever before in your life. Yeah, leave the news out. I don't know. Pause. Just pause. And don't worry about if you're doing it right. Okay? That's the problem with like taking a meditation class. I never can meditate right. I have never been able to meditate right, ever. You want to write a book? That's good. I was told that unless I majored in English, I'd never write a book that anybody liked, and I didn't major in English. And people love my book. So, there's a way to live on the loose. I'm not a cult leader. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but I am going to help encourage you to find your own way. So, we've gone through our time. I want to thank you. I will be back in the studio in 2 weeks. If all goes well, I'll be back in the studio in 2 weeks. We'll be talking with the author of I Didn't Do the Thing Today, another great book, but on the same notion of space and time and life on the loose and a way of living that is affirming instead of exhausting. There's enough things in life that exhaust us. We don't have to add to that. So, until then, what I'm going to do is tune off and stay tuned because Henry Archuleta has a great music show, the jazz show coming up next, and you want to stay on for that and listen to some amazing music and contemplate life on the loose. So thank you for joining me, and until I talk with you again, stay healthy, stay well, put your inner light just flame, right? Keep you inspired for a life on the loose. Goodbye.